Origin stories are boring. Prequels are pointless. Spin-offs add nothing. A whole new team can't possibly make something good. Well, Batman Arkham Origins has something to say about that. Batman Arkham Origins, released in 2013, was developed by WB Games Montreal, an internal Warner Brothers studio because the usual developer, Rocksteady, was busy learning the new hardware of the PS4 and Xbone. Also, Warner Brothers didn't want to go 4 years without a new Batman game, especially when Nolan's trilogy ended the year before. So Batman Arkham Origins was born, but not many people got to play it. Actually, not many people wanted to play it, which makes sense. Again, not made by Rocksteady. But around this time, there was a trend of spin-off games and prequels made by mercenary studios while the original developers were busy doing something else. Gears of War Judgment, God of War Ascension, Borderlands a pre-sequel, not to mention the annual franchises like Assassin's Creed and Call of Duty. People were sequel fatigued at the time, especially since the next-gen consoles are right around the corner. But Batman has a unique problem with fatigue. Batman. Everyone knows Batman. 10 years ago, if I went up to any random person on the street and I asked that person who their favorite superhero was, they'd probably say Batman about 50% of the time. And considering there's at least 2 universes full of superheroes, it's pretty damn impressive. Batman has been around for almost 80 years, and throughout those 8 decades, he has remained one of the most iconic figures of pop culture. Batman made his debut in Detective Comics number 27, published by National Comics Publication, and he became the lead character quickly thereafter. But wait a minute. Isn't Batman a DC Comics property? Yeah. National Comics Publication rebranded itself as DC Comics in 1977, after people had been calling them DC Comics for 37 years. 37 years. That's 1940, when Batman became the permanent star of Detective Comics. But it was the release of Tim Burton's Batman in '89 that started the current Batman craze. Since then, there's been a major Batman project nearly every year. After Batman Returns, we had Batman the Animated Series, then the Schumacher films, then Batman Beyond, then Justice League, then the Batman, then Justice League Unlimited, then the Nolan films, then the games, and a million other things I haven't mentioned. And not for nothing, but tonally we've undulated between the grim Batman aesthetic and the dark and gritty Nolan Batman for years. Schumacher tried to add a little bit of the camp back to Batman, but that only served to reinforce DC's aversion to a wacky Batman. A character as brooding as Batman has become can grow tiresome after a few decades. I mean, say what you want about the pervasiveness of the MCU brand, but all of their projects are spread out into dozens of characters with differing personalities and tones. Batman is just Batman. This is the atmosphere Batman Arkham Origins was born into, which leads us to... So WB Montreal have no real control over the franchise, so they had to tell a story that couldn't interfere with Rocksteady's plan for the end of the series. And to be fair, the game doesn't reveal its hand for a few hours. So even for players that did touch the game, they may have quit because it felt too much like the last one. Well, what do you do when you can't move forward? You back up. That's what WB Montreal did. They decided to make a prequel. So how were prequels faring at the time? Oh yeah, it wasn't great. That's not entirely fair. Like reboots and remakes, there were good prequels out there. Sometimes they end up being all 3, but the public at large, and especially the press, was suspect of them. An Arkham prequel doesn't inspire a lot of confidence in people is what I'm saying. You can't make a game out of the murder of Bruce Wayne's parents. A story about Bruce going around the world to find the path of Batman doesn't fit the established Arkham mold either. So what did WB Montreal decide to do? Again, everyone knows Batman. Stands to reason everyone should know his origin story. I mean, it's mentioned in damn near every Batman movie, TV show, and video game. So what even could a game with Origins in the title be about that would be interesting? Especially in a series already in motion. That's the Arkham part of the Arkham Origins, baby! So these games presented the Batman mythos around the spirit of Arkham. This reframing took heavy inspiration from Grant Morrison's Arkham Asylum comic all the way back in '89. Arkham Asylum is implied to be a corruptive force, a microcosm of Gotham City. Gotham breeds crime, but Arkham attracts something more sinister. In Arkham Origins, there is no Arkham. Instead, criminals are interred at Blackgate Prison. The kind of criminals Batman faces are simpler too. Batman's biggest villains were crime bosses with gimmicks, but they were just crime bosses. He had the oddball every once in a while, but most of his targets were easy to understand. They just want money and power. However, all this changes with the introduction of the Joker. The Joker doesn't fit in at all with what Batman is used to. He's a contrarian to the ideal of peace, of order. Or maybe he's just interested in critiquing Gotham's image, trying to dismantle its icons to prove that nothing matters. He does so easily with Black Mask, but Black Mask stood for nothing. Joker just tore down a facade, but when he meets Batman...
It's like meeting someone I can actually relate to. Which, believe me, dear, I've never felt before. You understand? You're someone who's not afraid to let go and fall.
Batman is nobody without his unwavering will. Green Lantern may be fueled by it, but Batman is made of it. And that's when it turns for Batman. That's when villains stop trying to get him out of the way, and when they start challenging his very existence. That's what supervillains should do, challenge the hero. The altruistic Superman against the corporatist Lex Luthor. The friendly neighborhood Spider-Man versus the egotistical Doc Ock. Batman's order faced with Joker's chaos. And once a hero is forced to embody an ideal, that's when they become super. Holy shit, super is such a fucking ridiculous word, alright. Shortly after the Joker and his ilk had been dealt with, that's when Arkham Asylum makes its return. That's when it becomes a house of evil, when it corrupts a fallen city and twists Jason's mind. This game recontextualizes a lot of the Arkham mythos. Batman, his villains, Gotham, Arkham, they all exist because of each other, and that's a wild thing. This game of all the other games has the best story, the best themes, all this and... That's the thing, right? That's why nobody played it. It wouldn't be a prequel if it was made by Rocksteady, it wouldn't have been glitchy if it was made by Rocksteady, it wouldn't have wasted time laying the groundwork for a Suicide Squad thing if it was made by Rocksteady. A side note, this game and its sister game Batman Arkham Origins Blackgate, a pretty solid Metroidvania, waste time setting up a Suicide Squad animated movie Assault on Arkham. It's pretty weird, especially considering the film basically ignores everything aside from the aesthetic of the Arkham games. Back to it. Many people think that because Rocksteady was making a next-gen Batman entry that WB Montreal wouldn't be allowed to put their own spin on this series, that they'd be stuck with the Arkham City blueprint. And honestly, in some respects, yeah. And does it fare worse in some areas? Yeah. Arkham Origins performs poorly. The setting is Christmas and it's snowing all the time, so the frame rate plummets at a consistent rate. Arkham City introduced the gliding mechanic. If you jump off from a high enough place and you utilize your grapple gun, you can basically fly. But the grappling points in Arkham Origins Gotham City aren't as numerous as you would expect and don't go high enough in some circumstances. This leads to instances where I got stuck and I had to run around the streets to find a point to grapple onto. It's especially hard to go back after Arkham Knight's near limitless flight and Spider-Man PS4's fluid movement. It's hard to go back, keep moving forward. The Predator missions don't feel as thought out as the other games. The enemies wander in every which way but where the special takedowns can be done. I feel rather limited in what I can do practically compared to the other games. The cutscenes feel over-directed at times. The Rocksteady games go for a more personal approach in their cinematic direction. Usually there's a subject to focus and the camera lingers. WB Montreal seems to be heavily influenced by Michael Bay or something. A lot of quick cuts, shaky cam, overly animated characters. It's not bad necessarily, just different, incongruous with the rest of the series. But man, when the Joker kills the Electrocutioner, that's a good death. Holy shit, I forgot there was a multiplayer. That tells you everything you need to know about that. Yeah, there's some problems. There's also goods. Arkham Origins introduces the ability to recreate crimes in a first-person mode, something Arkham Knight picks up on later, which is funny because in the Arkham Knight press tours, the PR team seem to be throwing shade at Arkham Origins, saying that Arkham Knight is the end of the trilogy, making no reference to either of the WB Montreal games. The joke's on them. Arkham Origins is the only game with consistently good boss fights. Arkham Asylum's boss fights are bad. Arkham City had the Mr. Freeze boss fight, which was great. Every other boss fight was bland or bad. Arkham Knight had the Arkham Knight boss fight, which was cool, but most of the other boss fights were okay. None of the best boss fights had to do with the Batman combat, another thing the Arkham games are best known for. But Arkham Origins figured it out. The Deathstroke boss fight feels intimate and brutal like a fistfight between an assassin and Batman should, and it worked within the parameters of the Batman combat system, something typically meant to be used in group combat, distilled into a one-on-one slugfest. And that's not all. The Firefly boss fight is great, the Bane Vulcan Raveness boss fight is great, the Deadshot boss fight is great, the Viper boss fight is cool. Like holy shit, better than you would think from an also-ran studio. Hey, what about the studio? One of the major selling points of Batman Arkham Asylum was Paul Dini's involvement. For those not in the know, Paul Dini has been writing Batman for years. He co-created Batman the Animated Series with Bruce Timm, and with it came the DC Animated Universe that lasted for over a decade. Batman the Animated Series is considered essential in the Batman canon. Renee Montoya, the revamped Mr. Freeze, and Harley Quinn wouldn't exist without the show, so he's pretty important. With Paul Dini came other Batman the Animated Series alumni in the form of Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill, voicing Batman and the Joker respectively. Arkham Asylum was seen as a Batman the Animated Series reunion. Too bad there wasn't much of a story. Well, it was 2009, so it didn't really need one. It just had to prove that licensed games could be great, and it did. All Arkham Asylum had to be was the greatest hits of Batman history. Great cast of villains, Batman fights, Batman stealth, Batman tech, Batman murdered parents. That's all it needed to have. Then Arkham City came along. For a while it was my favorite. I think the Joker Batman stuff works really well. The ending is really strong and kind of captures their relationship. But the narrative feels scattered. It doesn't have a strong focus. Like the Joker-Batman stuff is strong, like I said, but the Joker wasn't the big bad of the game. But Rocksteady felt like they had to include him because he's the Batman villain, so the ending is dedicated to him. There are two major plots going on that barely intersect, and the resolution for both come one right after the other, so it's hard to feel attached to either one. However, Arkham City did have that one through line, where everyone was like, holy fucking shit, Batman, you need help. And Batman wanting Bat only he can do it, and then at the end, Catwoman helps him, and he's like, maybe I do need help. Arkham Origins grappled onto that. Put a pin in that. So this game didn't have anybody from the Arkham games working on this one. Maybe a few voice actors, but that's it. They even replaced Batman and Joker's voice actors.
Bane's still alive. Now that's not funny.
Yeah, that's Roger Craig Smith and Troy Baker as Batman and the Joker respectively. They do a decent enough job at trying to sound like younger versions of the Batman and Joker of the Arkham games. Like I could believe that after a few rough years they'd go from this.
How many lives did you just take?
None! I think that was just a little stocking stuffer. A construction site blocking my view.
To this.
It was all a lie. There's nothing wrong with you.
Nice of you to say, but you of all people should know there's plenty wrong with me.
So there's a decent replacement for the two largest actors. What about the writing team? Could they take the spot of prolific Batman scribe Paul Dini? So who'd they get? Wow, okay, so Corey May and Duma Winchuk wrote a lot of the early Assassin's Creed games. And there's Ryan Gaeta, who basically did nothing before this? Okay, so what we do know is that this team has a lot more experience writing stories for video games. Paul Dini isn't a video game writer, you can tell. Not that the games are poorly written, just poorly paced. They feel like Batman stories, but in a diorama sort of way instead of an actual story. Origins, on the other hand, has a more cohesive story. It's certainly paced better, there's more of a focus on Batman's character arc throughout the game, and it's center stage nearly the entire way through. Hell, we get some backstory for the Joker, even though I'm personally sick of the Red Hood origin. We should talk about Batman's arc. Let's talk about that point we pinned up earlier. The Batman of Arkham Origins is angry. Not the calm and terrifying anger of the Rocksteady games, but a wild anger. When Batman gets mad, he yells. When he presses henchmen for information, he accidentally knocks him out. When he speaks to a henchman, he feels the need to scream at them for information, instead of the growl Kevin Conroy employs. He acts like a spoiled teenager when Alfred tries to talk him out of the Batman thing. He's in the larval stages of his superhero career. He has no connection to anyone outside of Alfred, and he expects Alfred to just do whatever he says. When Batman comes across Jim Gordon, he expects him to just stand aside. He's entitled. It takes near tragedy to correct his behavior. A bridge of innocence nearly dies to the vulture of Firefly, before Gordon and Batman decide to work together, and Bane has to bash Alfred's skull in before he realizes that Alfred is more of a partner than a tool. Bruce's decision to be Batman inherently puts the lives of those around him in danger. When he pushes them away, it only pushes them further into jeopardy. Only by working together can Batman ensure the safety of his allies. This whole game is about cultivating the relationship shown in the other Arkham games, and that includes like I said earlier in the video, this Christmas Eve is when things took a turn for Batman. Before this night, most of Batman's villains were easy to understand. Crime bosses that just want money and power. But with the arrival of the Joker, they become something else. With the arrival of the Joker, it became more about proving a point, rather than getting paid. The Joker came upon the scene just to add an element of chaos to Gotham's underworld. At first, he just hired a bunch of assassins to kill Batman because Batman had been getting in the way of crime for the past 2 years. But after their encounter at the Gotham Royale, it becomes more of a battle of ideologies. It's a very simple one. The Joker sees the world as a big show with people playing their parts. Or a game, if you will. And Batman has empathy and values order and justice. The Joker will not let anyone stand in his way, and the Batman will not sacrifice anyone but himself to achieve justice, no matter how much they get in the way or how awful they are. The Joker is very into corrupting Batman and his allies. It's a Batman tale as old as time. But it's also the only Arkham game that makes this the focus of their relationship. In the other Arkham games, the Joker will give Batman that choice for a second and then move on to whatever he was into at the time. Well, except for Arkham Knight, where the Joker was literally inside Batman's head trying to turn him into the next Joker. And if you take the corruption metaphor of Arkham and Gotham to literalize it, you have the relationship between the Joker and Batman. Batman is Gotham and the Joker is Arkham. When the Joker appears, Arkham quickly follows. When Arkham expands, the Joker corrupts the Batman. It's fun. But also, Arkham Origins' Joker actually devises plots specifically to get Batman to kill someone, and Batman has to think his way out of it. Like a Batman story, all culminating in a fantastic showdown at a church set to Carol of the Bells. Beautiful. So that's Arkham Origins. Post Arkham Origins, WB Montreal was kind of put on the back burner. They released LEGO Legends of Chima Online on iOS and Windows in 2014, then Rocksteady's Arkham Knight came out in 2015, and WB Montreal got to do some DLC. The Batgirl DLC is pretty cool. It's a 2 to 3 hour long take on the original Arkham Asylum with Batgirl and Robin instead of Batman. You can tell it's WB Montreal because of the cutscene direction. Also the weird bit about the Joker theme park in both Arkham Origins and the Batgirl DLC. Unfortunately, there isn't much of a story to speak of in the DLC. Too bad. However, since 2015, WB Montreal and Rocksteady haven't announced or released anything. Well, Rocksteady had Arkham VR in 2016, but so far nothing. However, both of them are rumored to be working on DC properties, with Rocksteady rumored to be doing something non-Batman related. There have also been rumors of a Damian Wayne Batman game. If I had to guess, it's supposed to be developed by WB Montreal. If that's true, sure. I would have preferred a Batwoman or Batgirl game instead of Damian Wayne game. But whatever, I have faith that they can do something interesting. And I hope they do get to do something else, because WB Montreal is a strong studio. They know what they're doing. But, you know, just wait and see, I guess. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Hark, what was that? Was it the badass legend? But wait, where's Ben? Look over there, he isn't snared. Oh God, where's Todd? Where's the squad?
Wham, bam, and slam, I am Batman, breaking your leg, cracked like an egg, spreading the fear. I domineer over your heads, you wish you fled. Fight for Gotham, I am Gotham, falling pull strings, mine is trolling. Proudly I fight, I'm the Dark Knight, my parents' beer, Christmas is here. I am Batman, I am Batman.
It's me, filled full of glee, clown prince of crime for the first time, playing Black Mass, boy what a task, working with Bane, man what a pain, bomb in my hands, yes I'm a fan, fighting the bat, oh more of that, ding 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 dong, that is the song of belfry bells heard from my cell, hatching my plan to get Batman to break his rule and kill a fool, destroy Gotham, my apothegm, a bat beating, the bells they ring, steep deep in fear, Christmas is here, steep deep in fear, Christmas is here. I'm the Joker.
I am Batman. On I go back to my home to watch Gotham,
On I go, planning a show. We'll meet again.